стремятся проследить каждый миг движения маленькой советской луны.
Героического народа. Совместный полет в космическом пространстве Валерия Быковского и Валентины Терешковой – это еще один блестящий успех советской науки и техники.
50 years ago, a brave cosmonaut named Valentina Tereshkova blazed a trail for women around the world by launching in a Vostok spacecraft to become the first female to fly in space. That groundbreaking achievement in the early days of the space race was an important step for women representing many nations and cultures to consider new paths in life. The work of Miss Tereshkova and that of Sally Ride 20 years later as the first American woman to fly in space served as an inspiration to me to study hard and to conclude that nothing could stop me from reaching as far as I could to achieve my dreams.
With the introduction of the Space Shuttle program, NASA began accepting women for the first time for astronaut training in 1978, and 6 American female astronauts began training to fly into space. The length of time between the first American man and the first American woman in space was 23 years. The 1978 astronaut training class included Anna Fisher, Shannon Lucid, Ray Seddon, Kathy Sullivan, Judy Resnick, and Sally Ride.
The fact that I was going to be the first American woman to go into space carried huge expectations along with it. And that was made pretty clear just the day that I was told I was selected to the crew, because I was also taken up to Chris Kraft's office, who was the head of the Johnson Space Center, because he wanted to have a little chat with me and make sure that I knew what I was getting into before I agreed to be on the crew. But I was so dazzled just by the opportunity to be on the crew and go into space that I really don't remember very much of what he said. On launch day, there was so much excitement and so much happening around us in the crew quarters, even on the way to the launch pad, going up the launch pad, looking up and seeing, this huge, rocket that kind of sounds like an animal. You can kind of hear the gurgling and the hissing, and, it sounds like it's alive. I spent an enormous amount of effort just trying to stay focused. I tried to block out pretty much everything that was going on around me and just kind of put one foot in front of the other, because it would have been way too easy to just be lost in the moment. I didn't really think about it that much at the time because I just wanted to get the opportunity to do that. But I came to appreciate what an honor it was to be selected to be the first woman to get a chance to go into space.
We extended a large solar array wing several times during the flight. This is the largest structure ever deployed in space. It was 1,300 square feet, yet it only weighs 300 pounds. The purpose of the array is to supply electrical power to a spacecraft or a space station by using the sun's energy. A wing this size has about the same capability as one of the orbiter's fuel cells, which is just about as much power as we typically use on orbit. The array unfolded just like an accordion being pulled up from the top by a coiled mast, which you can see in the front. The mast was made out of a fishing pole type fiberglass, and the blankets are pulled taut at 2 extension lengths, 70 feet and 100 feet. Here we have a scan from the aft window out the overhead window, giving you some idea of how large the array really looked to us as we were doing work with it.
I grew up in the 60s I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I was a young girl who loved to stare up at the stars. I imagined myself going there. I studied all the things about the Apollo program. I knew what mission was going to take place when, what it was supposed to accomplish. I picked up the phone. I called down to Johnson Space Center. I said, I would like an application to be an astronaut. They didn't laugh. I turned in the application. There may be a certain naivete when I say, when I applied to the astronaut program, I didn't even think about the fact of whether I would be the first African-American woman in space or anything like that. It didn't even cross my mind I wanted to go into space. I couldn't have cared if there had been 1,000 people in space before me or whether there had been none. I wanted to go. I thought it was important to take to space with me things that represented people who sometimes are not included. So I took a poster of Judith Jameson performing the dance cry. I took up a Bundu statue, which was for the Women's Society in West Africa. I took up a flag for the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the oldest African-American women's sorority in the United States, because they hadn't been included, and I thought that was an important thing to do. For me, the experience was one that made me feel very connected with the universe. I felt that my being was as much a part of this universe as any star, as any comet. It helped me to recognize that right now, we're in space. This Earth is part of that universe. That was my grand connection. And then I looked down and I saw Chicago. I thought about the little girl who had assumed she would go into space. What would my younger self have thought if she met me? And I think she would have been tickled.
Kalpana Chawla was born in Karnal, India. She was the first Indian American astronaut and the first Indian woman in space. She first flew on Space Shuttle Columbia in 1997 as a mission specialist and primary robotic arm operator.
This is Prime Minister Gujral from India. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Gujral, I hear you loud and clear. How do you read me?
Kalpana, we are proud of you. Each one of us in India is proud of us. Proud of a person like you who has done such a pioneering work. And particularly the women and youth of India, a great deal of pride in seeing what you have done in the space. My hearty congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
You know, when I think of you, I think what a long journey you have covered from Karnal to space, long distance. And therefore, when I talk to you, I feel I'm talking to a person who is representing India in the space now.
It's a very special feeling. And really out here, the night sky, when it's a dome of a dark sky and stars everywhere, and the earth a lot of time covered with thunderstorms here and there, with some small sprays of lightning, and every once in a while city lights through the clouds. And it is very much like a storybook. And the crew that I'm working with out here, all of us work so well together, and it's such an honor and privilege to be able to share this very special mission with them.
Yelena, you will become only the fourth Russian woman to fly in space when you launch, and the first since Elena Kondakova flew on the space shuttle back on her second flight into space some 14 years ago. How significant is this for you personally, and what is the importance of your flight opening up the door, perhaps, for more Russian women to become cosmonauts in the future?
Let
me answer this question like this. The door to space was opened to all women by Valentina Tereshkova. We only do our work. I don't think I'm doing anything extraordinary. I'm just doing something that was started by our female astronauts, cosmonauts. I think that both cosmonauts and astronauts, first of all, should be professionals in their area in order to perform their work in exemplary manner.
Why did you want to be an astronaut?
It's, I like to say that it's not me who made the choice. It's not like I chose space, but in a way I was chosen. Because I cannot really find a moment in my life where I made a conscious decision, but in a way I always knew that I wanted to travel to space, and it goes back to early childhood.
Now that you are an astronaut, do you feel that you're going to be a role model for other European women who have an interest in this field?
I think growing up, I've looked up to men and women equally and tried to learn from all the people that I thought could be role models, something that I could apply in my life. Now, of course, what can be especially important for women is that it can be encouraging to see that women can do that, and in fields where there aren't that many women, it can be quite important actually, and that's certainly a privileged position to be in.
26-year-old chemist Helen Sharman would ultimately become the first Briton to orbit the Earth.
As I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all, I was leaving my options as open as possible. Loved sciences, knew I could learn sciences more easily if I went straight into them, so decided I'll do a science. What was going to be fairly middle of the road, so I could go physical or biological, chemistry. But I really was just driving home from work one evening, listening to the car radio and flicking through the radio stations, trying to find something that I fancied listening to. And I tuned on to a station, I still don't know which one it was, and I caught this job advert which started out with the line, "Astronaut wanted, no experience necessary." There had been no job for a British astronaut up till then. It was not possible for me as a Joe Public to aspire to be an astronaut until that moment. Suddenly then, yes, that was the job I really wanted.